Okay, I am Courtney Wallace, and this is my second interview for leadership in my leadership and ministry class with Dr. Clancy Hayes. And beside me, I have our associate pastor, Jonathan Bottoms.
Hey,
Okay.
shout out Clancy Hayes. He's the reason I have this job.
That's fantastic. So now he gets to do a checkup on you.
Yeah.
Maybe submit a grade. Okay, don't grade me based on him.
Yeah, he is. Clancy Hayes is the reason that I work here. Pastor called the school and happened to get the one professor that likes me.
The one professor that likes you. So to start, I'd love to go back to the beginning of your story. Can you walk me through how you first stepped into leadership in ministry and how that calling has developed from a children's minister into your current role as an associate pastor?
So ministry has not been, for context, my parents were pastors growing up. So I grew up in the ministry. Like, this is all I know. I have two siblings who did not go into the ministry. And most often you'll see a pastor's kid, when they grow up, they do not want to go into the ministry because they see the ugly side of ministry, and there is an ugly side to ministry. But I grew up and I just always felt like this was what I was supposed to do. This is where I was supposed to take my life. And so when I originally went to Sagu, now it's Nelson. When I originally went to Sagu, I did not know like where in ministry I was going to go, but I knew I was meant for ministry. So I just got a general ministries degree, and I began letting God kind of decide what that would look like. And along the way, I had a passion for children's ministry at the time. And so I just ended up following that, pursuing that. And I worked at churches around the university. I played music for them. Sorry. I played music for them. I did kids ministry for them, just whatever, wherever I could fit. And right after I met my wife at Sagu and we got married, and right after that, we got a call from a church down in Beaumont, Texas, saying that they were interested in having us as children's pastors. And I always enjoyed children's ministry. And so we began to pray on it. We visited them. And eventually, over the course of, it actually went pretty quick. Over the course of about a month, we decided that this is where we were supposed to be. This is where God wanted us. And so we came down here, and I served as a children's pastor for 7 years. And then around that time, children's ministry was not lighting my fire anymore. But I felt like God had called me to this church, you know? And so thank God we have a wonderful pastor. And he brought me into his office one day and said, I don't think children's ministry is your thing anymore. I don't think that's where God has you. And by then I was very burnt out on children's ministry. And so I agreed, and he said, well, we're going to transition you. And so then I spent, he transitioned me to associate pastor, and I spent 2 years around the youth group during a staff transition while I did that. And then eventually we hired on a youth pastor, and here I am.
Here you are. Now, this was not on the questionnaire, but I wanted to talk about it too. You had said in the beginning that you were actually pursuing like being a worship pastor at one point.
Yes. So this is for students that are going to Sagu.
Yeah.
Chances are several of them are in a similar place that I was in, which is I've always been a musician. I enjoy music very much so. But I was a big fish in a very small pond. And I was one of the best musicians in our very small town. And so in my head, I was like, this is it, you know? And so when I went to university to be a worship pastor, I got there and I realized that everybody knows how to play the guitar. And most of them are better than me. And they sing better than I do. But by the time I'd entered into school, I was already unsure, but I enjoy music, and so I was going that direction. And very quickly, I realized that this was not what I was made to do. It's something I enjoy. I play on the worship team here.
Learned a new instrument. Well, I don't know if you learned a new instrument, but you took up playing a different instrument than your main. Yeah,
for sure. It's something I really enjoy. I like to do it, but it just wasn't it wasn't the calling that God wanted to use me primarily in. And some of that is when you get to a big pond and you realize you're not, there's some humbling that happens when you get into it. But worship is still a process of like what I like to be involved in, but it just wasn't. It didn't end up being what I was called to do. Some of it was I couldn't read music, so somehow I got into music theory.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I tested into it, or I don't remember the whole process, but I got into music theory, and then I failed that with like an 11%.
Oh, wow.
Because it turns out you really have to read music.
You have to know.
Yeah. And I'm good at understanding how music works. I have a good ear. I have a good ear. I understand music theory, but I can't read the little dots on the page.
Yeah.
And so after you fail music theory with an 11%, that's a pretty good indicator that God's calling you somewhere else. And so I went somewhere else.
Yeah. And somewhere along that journey, when did it shift for you from simply serving where was needed to really carrying vision and responsibility as a leader?
Man, I don't know. That's a great question. I've always served where is needed, even like now.
Oh no, yeah. Now you're out there moving logs for no reason. Like no reason, but anything.
I move logs. I'm the one who my job description's weird too, because I basically just do whatever is required. So.
Like one day I was walking around the hallway and you had the whole sink out in one of the restrooms, just being a plumber that day.
Yeah.
But it's part of it.
Well, and that's ministry.
Yeah.
Like if I remember one time a pastor told me, if you're too big to hold a toilet brush, you're too big to be a pastor.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me, so that's part of it. As far as the leadership idea go, I don't think there was ever a moment where I felt I was transitioning into a role of more leadership. It just kind of happened. One of the biggest things is this. Oftentimes, and I grew up in the Assemblies of God.
Mm-hmm.
The Assemblies of God, we have a bad habit of pastors will hop from churches about every 2 years. And so like when I got hired here, I assumed I was going to be here about 2 years, and then I would go on to the bigger and better thing. Whatever that was. I don't know what mindset that was, but I did not, if you will plant somewhere and you will stay there and you will be faithful for a long time, eventually God begins to bless that, and that begins to flourish into something. I did not start to get any real like influence or leadership influence in our church until I'd been here at least probably 5 or 6 years is when people finally started to say, okay, he's here for a while. We trust him. That's when about 5 or 6 years is when people start coming to you for advice on marriages. It's when families start coming in saying, how do I raise my kid this way?
Yeah.
Longevity is how you transition into leadership. You don't just come in and people respect you because of your title like that.
Yeah.
Stay consistent. And even now, like I've been here 10 years. It'll be 10 years in August. Just now, every week I'm like, okay, people are starting to see me as like a leader here. I have some type of that. But if you're going somewhere every 2 years or every 3 years because it gets tough and it's easier to go somewhere else, you're never gonna develop that ability to actually lead people. You have to have buy-in.
Yeah.
Longevity is the key with that, I think.
I think so too.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. No, I think, as you moved from children's pastor into youth ministry and now as an associate pastor, how did your approach to leadership begin to change? Because leading kids versus leading youth, even though the ages are so close, it's such a different dynamic. And then now being an associate pastor, now you're still handling all the ages in the church, but your primary focus isn't on the children anymore. Sure. So there's a different dynamic.
So with leading kids, the easiest thing with leading kids is just be consistent.
Yeah.
Show up every week and care about them. Kids want leadership.
Yeah.
That's part of, with my kids, they want boundaries. They want authority. They may kick against it sometimes, but they want it. And so with children's ministry, it's very easy. You just show up weekly, care about them, and then they begin to follow you. Mm-hmm. For starters, you're one of the only adults who really listens to them when they talk. They're going to think you're cool, And so with children, they just follow you. When you get into like middle school and high school, leading middle schoolers is
they just roast you all the time.
It is. Yeah, genuinely. I think that's probably one of the best ones because like leading middle schoolers, good luck.
Yeah.
But
But to have that rapport with them that they can roast you and know that in a weird way it's a safe space for them to you know, go back and forth with you, and you'll roast them back, but not in like a mean way, in a fun jest type of way.
So I still have very deep relationship with all the youth in our church. Like I love them and they love me. And I think some of it is I refused to try and be the cool youth pastor because I'm not cool. I've never been cool. I'm just not. I have transition frames. When I go outside, my glasses turn into sunglasses. Yeah. That's not cool, okay? It's efficient, not cool.
Back in like maybe the early 90s, it was cool.
I don't know if it ever was. But I just was unapologetically myself. Like I embraced the fact that I wasn't cool. I knew I wasn't cool, but I cared about them.
Yeah.
And I was going to show up and I was going to be there and I was going to embrace the fact that I wasn't cool. And when they made fun of me, I'd be like, you're right. You know? And I think with students, they don't really need you to be cool or fun. They just want you to be you, you know? And that's what I was with them. I'm me. And to this day, like, they're my friends, you know? Now they're my students also, but we have a relationship there. They come to me and ask me for advice. And it's because they know I'm not going to try and like be cool. Yeah. I'm just going to be me. I didn't dress cool on Wednesday nights.
No, you wore a hard hat sometimes.
Yeah, the hard hat was...
And dress up like Moses.
I told our students all the time, they'd be like, you're so lame. I'm like, when you're 30, you're going to realize I was the coolest
person you know.
The coolest guy you ever met. But like, I didn't dress different. I didn't use like, I don't understand the words they're using.
Yeah, the Gen Z slang.
And if I used them ironically, and it was to make them uncomfortable, and they knew that. But I was just me. But what they knew was when they saw me, they got me, and I cared about them. And teenagers just want someone to care about them. Yeah. Genuinely. That's all they want is somebody to care about them. And so I cared about them, you know? And then with adults, it's the same. It's authenticity. Yeah. I probably admit to too much on stage. I admit to way more than I should, but I am genuine. I want to be very, very transparent.
I'm about to say, I think people, as much as somebody may be like, oh, because he said that, they appreciate the honesty.
Well, and the biggest deal is if everybody knows your flaws are not going to ruin your career. Yeah. Because when they come out, people go, yeah, we already knew. Yeah. You know, I'm a little rough around the edges at times. Now, I'm a follower of Jesus. I hold to a standard of conduct that is a follower of Jesus, but I'm also a little rough around the edges. But I am that to my whole church. Yeah. I have and that's a big one with adults in your church, is develop relationships with your church members. Regularly, I am not in my office because I'm at some old man's house hanging out with him, working in his wood shop, or I am at somebody's house helping them build a fence or just whatever. I show up. I show up to their parties. I show up to their events, and I care about them. I work out with 3 or 4 guys at the gym every day, and I do not miss that appointment because we're in each other's lives. And when you do that, they begin to see you're not just this guy on stage that talks about the Bible, but you're living this life and you're available to them. And that gives you buy-in, because then when there's a relationship, when they're having an issue in their marriage, they come to you. You know, we're at the gym and somebody says, hey, me and my wife are dealing with this. What do I do? You know, well, now we can talk about it. We can be open to that. But I think for me anyway, it's a transparency thing. I try and be as transparent as possible. Now, that being said, you don't need to put
all your business.
Don't get on stage and just read the laundry list of things you did wrong that week. But be transparent about who you are. Who you are on stage is who you are off the stage. It's who you are in their lives. It's who you are at the gym. It's who you are at home. Yeah. This is who you are. And that's and I've just been around a long time, and that helps. Yeah,
you're one of, I don't want to say this in a way that makes it sound like ageist, but you're one of the longest like lasting staff members here. Churches don't typically have staff that last a long time. Like you said, most of the time 2 years, and you've been here 10. So, I mean, I think that's a testament to your personality and I don't want to say I don't want to just lean at all on personality, but to how well you connect with the church. Like people know you, they love you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah.
Well, and I've been here through some hard times. Yeah. I have been here when members of the board were trying to get me fired.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I came in and resigned because I told Pastor, if I'm the problem, you can have my resignation. I don't want to hurt this church. My life is for this church.
Yeah.
And he did not accept my resignation. But I've been here for that stuff. I've been here when there was scandals in the church. I've been here. We had a church split, and I was here during the church split. And when you're consistent, those hard times, it's fascinating to me. Every time we run into a very difficult time in the church, I will start getting job offers on LinkedIn from other churches. And I think it's a spiritual thing. And every time, and oftentimes those job offers will be somewhere that looks a lot flashier or pays a lot more. But when it comes down to it, God has called me here.
Yeah.
And until God tells me to leave, this is where I'll be. And so I ignore that. And when you stay through the hard part, I've had conflicts between me and Pastor where we don't see eye to eye and we are in conflict. Now I submit to him in public, but in private, I didn't like him a whole lot.
Yeah.
But if you will stay through those hard moments, when the church sees that after the hard time comes, you're still here, it matters. I grew up, I had a new youth pastor every 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, because 2 years was about the point when conflict would happen and they would scoot. And I just knew about every 2 years you get a new youth pastor. And that is not my goal. The kids that I had in kids church, I was their youth pastor when I was there.
And some of them are adults or
now they're becoming adults. You know, I'm about to start a college age ministry because I have students that have aged into college and they said, we don't have anything. I'm like, okay, then I'm going to get you something. But I've been here for the major milestones in their lives. You know, I've been here with couples who struggled with infertility and now they have a family in the kids ministry. I was here for that. You can't do that unless you stay a long time. And that's how people buy in, is you are consistent, you are here, and you care.
Yeah. What are some leadership skills that carried over easily between, caring and staying, but you may have another answer to this as well. So
I can give you another answer.
What were some leadership skills that carried over easily between those roles? And what were some areas that you really had to grow into intentionally?
Say the question one more time.
Okay. What were some leadership skills that carried over easily between those roles? And what were some areas that you had to grow into intentionally?
Okay. So this is more, I'm going to take a route that's more like personality based. I am you can probably attest to this. I'm a very assertive, very driven personality. It is hard.
Behind the humor. Yes, I would say so.
It is hard to railroad me.
Yeah.
But on that, I will railroad you if I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
You know, that is the flaw that comes with the positives of this. I'm very self-assured. I'm very confident. I'm very driven. So that plays well into leadership at times. Now, if you're not careful, it can swing the other direction and all of a sudden you get a Mars Hill situation.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden you get this unhealthy leader who is a tyrant.
Yeah.
That's not okay. But my personality plays naturally into this idea of being a leader because I can stand up and say, this is where we're going. Everybody follow me. And I start moving. Right. You know, I'm not worried about that. But what I had to develop, and it started in kids ministry, and now it's actually surprisingly, the biggest challenge with it is when you're working with adults is this idea of stopping and listening to what the other person has to say, even when they're disagreeing with what you've already decided you need to do. With kids, you need to very much pay attention to how they feel in this situation. I don't care how anybody feels. It's not good, but I just don't I don't have time for how we feel. We have something we have to do. This is something I've had to develop to say, no, God doesn't just call me to lead my ministry. God has called me to the people in my ministry. That is my primary ministry. I'm supposed to pastor them, not just lead, to pastor. Nowadays, we're very great at leadership, and leadership is important. But I think a lot of pastors have become leaders, and they stop being pastors. Yeah. Pastoring is what we are called to do. We are a shepherd of the flock. So when somebody comes in and they have an issue with something going on in the church, sit down and listen to them. Hear what they're saying. Acknowledge what they're saying. And then our goal is not that we continue doing what we're doing. Our goal is that we pastor them to a place that they are either we may need to change something because we're not actually pastoring our church, or we get our church to come along with us and we take our time. Slow down. Make sure that your church is with you, that they care about this. And also make sure that they're being heard. When
Yeah.
a couple comes in and has a marriage problem, my goal is not just to get them out of my office so I can get back to what I'm doing. My goal is to say, no, this marriage matters to me.
Yeah.
Because this marriage is a marriage in my church. And so we begin to work with them, which involves late night phone calls, which involves I've been called at 3 a.m. and I answer the phone and there's something going on and I get up and get dressed and I go and I handle it. And my wife, God bless her, she gets it. She's fine with it. She'll wake up and be like, where are you going? I'm like, this is happening. I need to go. And she says, okay. But that is the side of pastoring that you don't see as often with the leadership is I had somebody call me at 2 a.m. and I answered and they said, I have a question. I'm like, okay. Like, do you believe in ghosts? I was like, no. Like, do you believe in demons? And I said, do you got one?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. I got up, I
Yeah.
got my clothes on, I went to their house. It was a Christmas decoration that had gotten water on it and it was playing music. But that's my church member.
Yeah.
I showed up. We threw away the Christmas decoration. We prayed for their house. I talked to them about spiritual warfare. I told them, you have authority in this home because God has given you that. This is God's domain. We prayed for their house. We went over that. And then I check back in with them regularly.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's somebody calling and saying, you need to show up right now or I'm going to kill my spouse. You show up.
Yeah.
You do it. But that's the things that I had to learn is to care about those moments. While not every emergency is my emergency, if I can make room to make this work, I'm going to do it because I'm here to serve my church.
Yeah.
Also, I may rabbit trail on these questions. If I don't hit the question.
I was kind of expecting it, but that's okay because I will go off topic too if I'm not careful. So you're also leading in ministry while pursuing your Master of Divinity, which adds another layer to your leadership. How has your theological education shaped or even challenged the way you lead?
That's a good question.
I thought you read the questions before.
No, I told you I'm not reading them. We're doing it live.
I walked in here, handed him the questions, and he literally threw it behind him. So
I like to be caught off guard. No, I read the questions. So how has my theology affected the way that I?
Yeah, how has your theological education shaped or even changed the way you lead? Because I mean, a lot of the things that I've experienced, at least so far, we had to watch another video for this class, and they talked about the things they didn't learn at SAGU as they're leading. So I guess in a roundabout way of asking the question, we have a lot of theological classes, and so we learn a lot of that, but you really get experience hands-on.
Sure.
So what was the difference maybe let's reframe that question. So what was the difference maybe in things that you learned from SAGU about leadership versus now?
So first off, SAGU is a phenomenal school.
Yes.
I genuinely, I owe my life in part to SAGU. Like my wife is from there.
Yeah.
My job came through SAGU. And I learned a lot about what it means to dissect the word, what it means to pastor, how do you handle this? But there's a class I did not take that I am taking now in my master's program that I should have taken. Because I remember the first time that I had this moment where I was like, they didn't teach me about this in school. And I was sitting with a family. We had a family. It was a single mom and 2 kids. And they had been gone for about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe longer than that, maybe a month or 2. And eventually I reached out to him and was like, hey, you guys all right? What's going on? Well, she tells me we've had a problem. And I said, what is it? And their daughter, who was 4th grade, sleeps on the couch in the living room. And while they were in bed, somebody broke into their house and assaulted her daughter.
Wow.
And she said, what do I do? And I remember thinking, SAGU did not teach me how to handle this. I know how to run teams. I know how to manage people. I know top-down leadership.
Yeah.
They did not teach me how to deal with when there's this unsolvable pain in somebody and they don't know what to do. How do you approach this? And that's actually when I began saying, okay, I need to go back to school. But the biggest thing is I don't you need to take the class Pastoral Care
Mm-hmm.
by Tim Myers. Shout out Tim Myers. I'm taking that class right now, and this is what this class is on: is not how do you lead, but how do you pastor.
Yeah.
And it has been phenomenal in opening up my eyes to what this means. I read the book, The Contemplative Pastor by Tim Keller. And it was this idea of like, what does it actually mean to pastor somebody? Not to lead them, but to pastor somebody. And it's this idea of sitting down in the hard moments with them. And sometimes you don't have answers, but you just grieve with them. Walking them through this process of healing, walking them through this process of saying, okay, why would God allow this to happen in my life? You know, walking through this process of, I've been praying for a baby for years and I haven't gotten one. Does God not want me to be a mom? You know, these kind of issues, and sitting down with them. And that was something that SAGU was offering it because I'm taking a class now that's touching on this.
Yeah.
I just didn't know I needed to do that. But I think if there's one thing, like, just make sure you don't put all your bags in the leadership basket. It is important and it matters. You need to make sure you're doing something that says, okay, how do I equip myself to also be a pastor? Because it's very different. Our job is not sitting on that stage and preaching.
Right.
That's a perk. Our job is not growing teams and organizing them. That's a perk. Our job is hospital visits, funerals, births of babies, weddings, being there when we lose a loved one, when we lose a child. That is our job.
Mm-hmm.
We are there to guide people through this wilderness that they're in, to bring them onto the other side of the land God's promised them. But the wilderness is a long and hard journey, and our job is taking them through that. You need to make sure you're equipping yourselves to go through that. And then when you get out there, you're still going to run into a situation that you did not equip yourself for and you don't know how to do it. And that's when you fall back on grace and say, okay, God, I need your help. I don't know how to do this. What do I do? Let's move forward. But SAGU equipped me in phenomenal ways. But at the same time, in a 4-year degree where you're picking your classes, you know, you can't get everything. So make sure when you're picking your classes, you're saying, okay, the ministry that I'm going into, what is it going to involve? If you're going into worship ministry, call some worship pastors and say, what are some things you wish you would have learned?
Yeah.
And then pick some classes for that. If you're going into lead pastoring, what are some things you wish you would have learned when you in university? Find some classes that work with that. And then for the rest, find a mentor that works with you. We are blessed to have our pastor.
Yes, we are.
He is a good pastor. He should have fired me many times and he didn't. But he has mentored me along the way, and he's mentoring you guys, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a heart that I have now. Like, I work with the staff most often.
Yeah.
My goal is not just to make sure you guys do your job. I want to walk you through, what does this look like? What does ministry look like? What are these hard? We had a conversation about it yesterday.
Yeah.
What does ministry look like when you're dealing with a hard individual? That is the stuff that you need to make sure you're learning as well.
Yeah. That's good. So Pastoral Care by Tim
Myers. It's great.
So
I want to get him a new microphone. We could help him. I'm gonna send him an email.
So I know every season of leadership comes with its own weight. So what has been the most challenging aspect of leadership for you in this current season of life?
The most challenging aspect of leadership for me,
like right now, like what are you I don't want to say struggling, but
fair.
What are you dealing with right now that may be challenging?
So right now, this is actually, you're asking this question as me and my wife are very clearly walking through something. It's a very pointed answer, but
I'm sorry.
No, it's that's how God works this stuff out. Right now we are actually going through something where there's so I'm leading my church, but at the same time there's some very big decisions that my wife and I are having to make, and these are decisions that we cannot discuss with members of our church until after the decision has been made.
Yeah.
We're discussing it with pastor, we're discussing it with the elders, but we cannot discuss it with members of our church because this decision may affect the church. And I'm not going anywhere. That's not what this looks like. But there's some choices that we're making. Yeah. And oftentimes when you're in a leadership role, you will feel like you don't have somebody to lean on, like your church has somebody to lean on with you, right? You will find everybody in the church will bring you their problems, but but who do you bring your problems to?
Yeah.
You know? And I tell my wife all the time, I get frustrated. I'm like, here's what's crazy. I never ask anybody to solve my problems.
Yeah.
I just solve them. But I got to solve everybody else. Yeah. And we're going through something right now where my wife and I are carrying a burden in silence.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of the gig. Now, there's healthy ways to do that. I have people in my life that I go to. I have other pastors. My father is a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I call him and I'm like, okay, this is what we're processing. This is what we're doing. I have somebody I can talk to about this stuff. But the community of people that I normally connect with, and they carry my burdens and I carry theirs because I'm a member of this church also.
Yeah.
I can't bring this burden on them right now. And that is a challenge. Oftentimes you'll run into moments where there's a burden that you are carrying that you can't throw on your church community because it affects your church community.
Yeah.
And this burden needs to be carried without them right now. And that's hard at times. I think it's been harder for my wife than for me because I'm very good at just compartmentalizing. We don't think about that until we have to. My wife feels these burdens. And so part of this is like walking your family and your spouse through, listen, this is something that we're going through. We can't bring this to our church right now because this is something we've been told not to.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out how to carry this on our own and with the help of people who aren't in our general vicinity but have connections with us. And it's a challenge at times to do that. Oftentimes you will see if somebody's been in ministry 30, 40 years, they don't have any friends.
Yeah. Some pastors are some of the loneliest people.
They're lonely people.
Just because of the role.
Yeah. And they're lonely people. And what the reason, because I don't think it's necessary, but after 30 years, you develop a few friendships and they burn you because ulterior motives or they use something you've shared with them against you. The same stuff that happens in any relationship, but it's amplified because you're in a position of authority. Yeah. And so eventually pastors settle on this idea of like, it's just easier if I just don't have any friends. I refuse to live that way.
Yeah.
You know, I make friendships, I make deep friendships and I carry them. They help me carry that. But at times this can be a very lonely job. And that's part of it.
Yeah.
You have to learn to handle that, but then make sure that those lonely moments are temporary. And when that lonely moment is over and that's been processed, you plug back into community. You make sure you're in community.
Well, and that's one thing that you preach and you walk is that you cannot follow God alone.
You cannot. It's a group activity.
Yeah.
Nobody follows Jesus alone. You have to have somebody you're following Jesus with. And if you are a pastor, you still have to have that.
Yeah.
Find someone in your congregation that you genuinely can trust. This isn't somebody you met 6 months ago. This is somebody you've known for a long time that you genuinely can trust, and lean on them. You know, if you're young, most of the people in these classes are going to be younger than you and me.
Yeah.
Find somebody who's been at your church a long time and they're older than you and they care about you. Lean on them.
Yeah.
And chances are you will get burned at some point. When that happens, we don't just cut out our community. No, we press back in, and we press back in with new knowledge and new understanding.
Yeah.
But we press back in and you stay a part. You can't just pastor your church. You need to be a part of your church.
Yeah. Agreed. We kind of touched on the follow-up question. So, what has been the most rewarding part of leadership for you so far?
I think, so we pastors like to make this joke that like, this is a thankless job. And it's fun to make that joke, but genuinely like the fact that God has trusted me with the honor of being a leader in one of his churches, trusted me with his church community is an honor. And I will say like, one of the perks of that is that I have a community of people who care about me, who uplift me. If I have an issue with plumbing at my house, a plumber in my church shows up and helps me fix it. If I have an issue with my AC, an AC repair tech in my church shows up and they fix it. I say all the time, like, pastoring doesn't pay well, but you're never going to go hungry.
Right.
My church takes care of me. You know, they genuinely do. And some of that is because they probably know that I'm not getting paid a whole lot of money, you know, but they take care of me. when in doubt, there's always I always know a guy.
Yeah.
You know, there's always somebody in my church who's going to take care of me. Now, I try not to abuse that.
Yeah.
Because this is still their career and their life. But one of the perks of being in ministry is that there is a group of people underneath. If you're in a healthy church, there's a group of people that want you to succeed because you are helping them.
Yeah.
You're shaping their life. They want you to be comfortable. They want you to be taken care of. And that is one of the biggest perks is I've always had a circle of people that have helped take care of me. And I'm grateful for that. You know, I always have somebody, if I need somebody to watch my kids, there's somebody there.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. You know, that is something that most people don't have is when you become a pastor, you get a built-in community.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
And our church is, and this is not tooting our own horn, we have some of the best people in this church. And like, we're very fortunate for our congregation and our staff.
Tomorrow I'm taking my daughter. They're in a school. My wife's a teacher and it's a good school.
Mm-hmm.
But my daughter very much, she needs more. She needs a bigger push. She needs a bigger drive. She needs a theater program. She needs a music program.
I can see that with her.
That's her, you know.
Yeah.
She's the gifted and talented. My son, he's fine. He's chilling. He's good. But my daughter needs more. Well, there's a private school in town that offers all of this, but it is very, very expensive. Me and my wife started saying, okay, if this is what our daughter needs, we're going to pray that God makes a way for us to do this. About 6 months ago, a member in our church came up and said, hey, I feel like your daughter would do great in this school. I'm going to pay for her to go until she graduates high school.
Yeah.
We're talking $10,000 a year.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And she's going into third grade. And they've just offered to pay for this. And when that stuff comes, say thank you. That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. But that is a perk of this job. I got that because I'm their pastor and they see that my daughter has this and they say, we've been praying about it and we think this is what God wants us to do, and we hadn't even told him about it.
Yeah.
But that's a perk of the job, right? My daughter is now going to go to a private school where she gets all the extra push that she needs because of my job. That is not something that I take lightly, but it is a perk, you know?
Yeah. When did you clearly sense that you're walking in the calling God has placed on your life?
Man. When I find out, I'll let you know.
Okay. That's about, I mean, like really though, I mean, I think sometimes we don't know until we're there. Like, I'm not saying that you're not there, but sometimes we can't pinpoint it exactly. Like when that shift happened.
So right now, I believe I'm walking in exactly what God made me to do for this moment and this time. I believe that. I remember a dorm pastor that I had when I lived in Gwines. Great. Shout out Gwines. Gwines, third floor. I was there, and at the time I was dating who is now my wife. And I was going to get a degree in worship ministry, and she was going to get a degree in criminal justice. So I was going to break up with her because our callings
would have been the worst decision of your life.
Yeah, it would have. But our callings didn't match.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't work. In my head, every 2 years, I'm going to go to a new church. She's going to have to be a detective, you know, like, it just wasn't going to work. So I was going to break up with her. So I went to my dorm pastor and I told him, I was like, I got to break up with my girlfriend. He's like, wow. I was like, our callings don't match. And for me, like, I grew up in the AG, you're calling, you know. And he told me, he said two things which I thought were phenomenal. Number one, he said, why don't we slow down? He's like, you're putting a lot of weight on your calling, but maybe God's calling you to marry Amanda.
Yep.
So we'll see what God works out there. We don't have to make any rash decisions. And then he said, and when you're heading, because there was another side of this, which is, I don't know what God wants me to do.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know? And he said, well, the beauty of it is if you will just pray that you're in God's will, when a door opens, walk through the door.
Yeah.
He's like, the beauty about doors is they go both ways. If you get in there and you realize this wasn't it, you can walk right back out again. And so that's kind of been the mentality I have all the time is, okay, God, I know you're transitioning me. I know you're pushing me to a new stage, and I may not know exactly what that is, but I'm going to pray that you open a door for me. And when you do, I'm going to step through it. And if it's the wrong door, shut it. If you don't, and I go through it, I'm going to come back out, but I'm just going to trust you. And when I became a kids pastor, was God calling me to kids ministry? I don't know. I don't think so. I think he was calling me to ministry, and this is the door that opened. So I walked through it. And I was a kids pastor for 7 years. And that eventually transitioned me to where I am now, which is this is what I would think I was made to do.
Mm-hmm.
I love my role here. I love my position here. And God's using me in some big ways, and he's doing some big stuff in our church. And so sometimes I think if you just have the heart of God, I want to be in your will despite anything else.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you're calling me to do over there, but I know you're calling me over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And when I get over there, we'll figure out the next step. You don't have to have this process. And here's the reality is even now, there are moments I regularly am saying, God, am I in your will?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what you're wanting me to do? If it's not, tell me. But if it is, I'm going to be here and I'm going to do everything I can do. And then God will say, okay, you start feeling your heart that God's moving you in a different direction. What does that look like? All right, we're not going to take any rash decisions. But if a door opens and it seems right, I'm going to step through it.
Yeah.
And if it's wrong, I'll step right back out. You know? And so is this an idea of like, I know exactly what God wants me to do for the rest of my life? No.
Yeah.
But I know right now this is where he has me and I trust him. And when he calls the next thing, I'll do the next thing.
Yeah.
I'm not big on backup plans. I'm not big on plan Bs. No. We're just going to be in God's will and we're going to follow that. And it can leave you with some anxiety if you're a planner, but it has worked out it's worked out better than I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
I just want to be in the will of God in that moment. And then when the moment comes that his will changes, I'm going to do my best to step into that. And God honors that and he blesses that. And if your posture is, I want to be in God's will, you'll end up there.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to pray is keep me in your will so I won't be in your way.
Yeah.
Because we can get in the way of so many good things that God has planned for us because just of who we are.
Sure.
So I want to talk about something that's a huge part of your life outside of ministry. How has being a husband and a father shaped the way you understand leadership and calling?
For pastoring, it's a big one, especially being a father.
Mm-hmm.
Now, being a husband as well. Like being a husband is ministry.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I'm better at being a pastor than I am at being a husband. I'm getting better at being a husband. But being a husband is ministry. Being a pastor is ministry. And the way you interact with that is different. Being a husband is ministry the same way you serve your church. I treat my church like I treat my spouse. I give for my church. You know, I love my church. I give for my church. I sacrifice for my church. And there's been moments in our life where we are sacrificing for the sake of our church. But I do it because God has called me to love his bride.
Yeah.
You know, he has called me to love his bride, warts and all. And so I do it the same way that he's called me to love my bride, you know? And then being a pastor is this idea of like, oftentimes when you are being a pastor of a church is a lot like fathering children in a way, because what you're doing, God has given me these kids and he's tasked me with, I'm supposed to raise them and form them into an individual who looks like Jesus.
Yeah.
That's my goal. And my kids are feral, but they look like Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I do the same thing with my church. Oftentimes you're taking members of your church who are brand new to following Jesus or who have been following Jesus for years, but they've never quite clicked in it.
Yeah.
And you're walking them along the process of saying, this is what it means to have death to self. This is what, you know, we walk through the Sermon on the Mount and we say, this is what it actually means to give up your life for another human being, to say, no, I choose God's will over my will. And we're walking them along that process. And oftentimes the same with kids, you have to say the same thing multiple times before they really click.
Yes, you do.
You know, you just do. This week, I will have somebody in my office and we are going to have the same conversation that we've had 15 times.
Yeah.
You know, because they have a problem and we work through how to solve that problem. They go home and they don't do any of it. And then they come back and go, why isn't God helping me?
Why is this the same problem?
But that's the same with kids.
Yeah.
I have to tell my son not to take the couch cushions off the couch every day. Every day. You know? Eventually he's not gonna. It'll click. But part of this is understanding like where they're at, where you want them to be, and then saying, okay, you're not there yet, but I'm gonna walk you along that process. And it is slow. It takes a lifetime, but it is rich and it is beautiful. And when you see them become a version of who God made them to be, you have a pride and you have You know, when you see a couple who's been living together finally say, no, we want to be married because
Yep.
we want to do this right. There's a pride that comes with that. You know, you look at them the same way you look at your kid, like catching a baseball for the first time. You're
Yeah.
like, you did it, you know? And I think they're eerily similar. And
Yeah.
I would argue, you need to make sure how you're doing both,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because a pastor whose home is in turmoil
Yeah.
is not, you're not going to have the tools to do that. And a pastor whose church is in turmoil, it's going to feed into your home.
Yep.
You need to shepherd both. But I always start with my home, and
Yeah.
then we move from there.
And that's one thing, as being a parent, that I understand the grace of God so much more
Yeah.
now. Especially when you have children. Like, how many times have God told us to do something and we're just like, oh, but then we see the same idea when we talk to our kids.
Well, and I think that's why every pastor's kid, I grew up a pastor's kid, your dad tells embarrassing stories about your childhood.
You're used as a sermon illustration.
every week, right? And as a kid, it's so annoying because you're like, you're just embarrassing me. But as a pastor, like, man, pastoring a church and raising a family are so similar that
Mhm.
oftentimes you'll say, well, it's like this with my kids. You
Yeah.
know, it's like this with my kids. It fits. It's the same thing God is doing with us.
Yeah.
It's like this with our kids, you know?
Yep.
And so now on the other side of being a pastor, I get it. You know, my kids are sermon illustrations often in my sermons.
Mhm.
Now I try and be nicer to them than my dad was, but it's part of it.
Yeah.
They're so identical.
Well, speaking of being a kid, you grew up in Colorado. So what role did your family play in that decision of moving to Texas, and how did the move impact the way you lead today? Because I know Colorado and Texas, I'm born and raised Texan. Very different dynamic. Like, we went and visited Colorado, me and my husband, back in October, and just the difference in personalities of just random people it was so jarring for me.
It's a very different place. This goes back to, I grew up in ministry, so
Mhm.
most down here where I live, everybody lives around their family.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's related to everyone down
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Half the time we don't even realize we're related.
Everybody
to them.
like, oh, that's my cousin. You know,
Yeah.
and that's my cousin.
Yeah.
That's my cousin. And sometimes that's your cousin, but you're not even blood related. That's just
Yeah.
what you call them. But I grew up, we didn't have any family around us growing up because my parents pastored in Texas, and then they pastored in Colorado,
Mhm.
and then they moved to another place in Colorado, and now they're in Colorado Springs. And so we didn't have a circle, like, we didn't have close family around us. So I grew up with this mentality that the church was my family.
Yeah.
It just was. So when it came time for me to move somewhere and plant and start pastoring, it was not a big issue for me. It was for my wife.
Yeah.
My wife is Mexican, and she grew up in the DFW area. And if you know anything about that culture, it is a very close family
It's
culture.
very family oriented.
Yes. Every Saturday when we were dating, we went and hung out with her family. And for me, I was like, why are we doing this? You're supposed to see your grandparents once a year, if that.
Yeah.
You know? So the move for her was a big deal. But I think it was good for us to move away from everybody when we became pastors of a church.
Mhm.
And this is why. When we moved here, we had no one.
Yeah.
We didn't know anyone. I didn't understand the culture of where I lived.
Sorry. We're a little weird down here.
Well, I would die. I would die for Texas now. I'm never leaving Texas. This is God's country.
It is.
But like, we didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
But what this did was this encouraged us to build our family out of our
Mhm.
church. And we did. We built a family around us out of our church. My kids have pseudo grandma and grandpas in our
Mhm.
church. My kids have aunts and uncles in our church. They have cousins in our church who are not blood related, but these are the people we sat down. I remember we had a family of people that we were growing, and then Amanda became pregnant with our first child. And I said, okay, we need to surround our family with people that are going to be good for our children.
Yeah.
You know, I want people who are going to guide our children correctly. And so we began doing that. And luckily, we already had a group of people that fit that mold, and we added in people. But now, my daughter's uncle is in the
Yeah.
office across the hall.
Yeah.
And he is the best uncle that I could ever ask for my kids. He is generous with them.
And now he's the children's pastor.
Yeah, and he's
the
he's the children's pastor, and he is generous with his time and with his money and with his attention. He cares about those kids, you know. And the thing with moving that shaped my ministry the most is it forced me to pastor the way that you're supposed to pastor, which is I had to plug into my community. I had to get involved in my community, because if I didn't, I had no one.
Yeah.
And it was good for us, and it was hard on my wife for about a year. But then we developed a community, and now like the idea of leaving here, this is our life. This is our family. You know, these are the people that my kids have grown up with. These are the people that my kids know. And that's how you minister correctly, I think. Yeah. And I could be wrong. Like I said, I've only been doing this 10 years.
I think it's really cool that you have a found family that, like, I grew up with cousins that weren't really cousins, but having people, because sometimes blood family can be a little different and not nearly as supportive, but you have a found family that is as close as a brother, which I think is amazing.
And to be fair, sometimes your found family comes with all the same problems that your blood family does.
Yeah, they can do that.
That's just family.
Yeah.
But our life is rich and deep and wonderful. And it's because we had no one, so we had to figure it out.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Well, so this one you kind of already answered it, so I didn't want to be redundant.
I'm a talker.
I know.
I will ramble as long. I have a podcast that I do for hours.
I know I was going to kind of plug it, but I don't know if everybody is going to watch it or just Dr. Hayes.
That's fine. Actually, Dr. Hayes, watch my podcast.
You would probably enjoy it. Me and my husband
hero.
have been watching it and laughing. It's so great because Stephen, what was it? Your omelet de fromage.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just an omelet with cheese. And Stephen just watch the episode. You'll
Clancy
get it.
Hayes, you're my hero, and you're the best professor I ever had. Watch my podcast.
Yes. So what's something this is kind of true. Like, what is something, or we've already asked this, what's something you wish someone would have told you about leadership earlier on? You kind of already answered that. Okay, this is a good one because I know that you do have some practices that you do. So what are some practices that help you stay faithful and healthy in leadership, especially during demanding seasons?
Okay. Yeah, this is so I'm big on spiritual practices because I'm a millennial white Christian, and that's what we're into right now. But genuinely I am. And so we're just gonna be very vulnerable.
Yeah.
I was pastoring at the church for several years, and I did not realize that genetically in my family runs depression. And so I remember I'd been here. It was right as my wife was pregnant with my daughter, and things just got bad. And I was working 80, 90 hours a week. And I remember telling my wife, I don't have enough time in the day to do everything I need to do. And every day I get more things, and I'm trying. And it got to the point where it was really, really bad, to the point where I had decided that I was done and I was going to end my life. And I flew to Colorado. I went hiking into the mountains for 7 days. And my plan was I was just not going to come back out. And God found me in the woods, thank God. And he found me there, and I spent 7 days fighting with God in the woods.
Luckily, you didn't come back with your hip all dislocated.
I tell you what, I connect with Jacob in a lot of ways. But when I came back out, I came to my wife and said, okay, I have to do something different. And so I started looking for, what am I missing? Because the life of Jesus is supposed to offer peace.
Yeah.
And I don't have that, you know? And so I began to find the spiritual practices, and some big ones came that have applied to me are one. Number one is Sabbath.
Yes.
I am bordering on legalistic about Sabbath now. Now, it's not legalistic because of why I'm doing it, but my family Sabbaths.
Yeah.
We rest once a week. Friday night to Saturday night, we don't do anything. Now, every now and then you can't hit that, and there's something that you have to do, or there's an emergency, and I get it. But we Sabbath, and we make it a routine in our home, is that when the sun goes down on Friday, we make a big cookie in a skillet. We eat it with ice cream. We light a candle because we want ceremony with it. And then we Sabbath, and we don't clean the house. We don't work. we rest,
Yeah.
and we will go out to dinner with friends, or we will go to a movie, or we will sit at home all day and watch TV. My kids have unlimited tablet time on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
They're chilling, and we rest. And that was a big one for me, is God has designed this system that's supposed to bring life to us.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if you're in ministry, you will ignore Sabbath altogether.
Yeah.
Because, man wasn't made for the Sabbath. Sabbath was made for man.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of that sentence is it's a gift that was made for us.
Yeah.
And so I began to Sabbath, and it was so good for me. And then the other one that I'm very big on is silence and solitude.
Yeah.
And this is very important to me, is I get away and I sit and I'm quiet, and it is just time where I can just sit in the presence of God. And I do this with deer hunting.
Same.
Yeah. And anybody in our church, anybody in my church knows this is my thing.
Yeah.
I hunt deer. And I'm the worst hunter in Southeast Texas.
Self-proclaimed was on a podcast
Yes,
saying that as well.
I am
not
the worst.
the same podcast though.
I don't see very many deer.
Yeah.
But the biggest reason I go out is not for that. It's because I get out 5 or 6 miles into the swamp. I climb up in a tree. I have no cell service. I'm not allowed to talk or listen to anything because it would scare away a deer. I am forced to just sit in nature alone and spend time with God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pray and I think the big problems that I'm dealing with, this gives me time to break these down with the Holy Spirit and really walk through them.
Yeah.
This gives me time to get rid of anxieties. This gives me time to recognize the creation that God has put around me. And this is the most healthy thing I do for my ministry. Mm-hmm. In fact, oftentimes I will be waiting for deer season. Like right now, we're going through something, and I would kill for deer season, because I need something.
Yeah.
And so what I did a few days ago is I just went and wandered through the woods and looked for antlers.
Yeah.
I need that. I need to get away. I need to be alone where the church isn't calling me, and I'm just spending time with God and with myself. And it is just a moment for me to just be alone.
Yeah.
My wife knows this. I disappear for 3 months out of the year. She doesn't see me because she's a single mom because I'm hunting.
Like you're so excited when we cancel rehearsal because then you're like, I get to go to
so
the woods
excited.
again.
Yes. But she allows me to do this, God bless her, because this is necessary for my mental health, like this, and my spiritual health. And then on the other side of that, I work very hard to make sure my wife gets these moments where she can go be alone.
Yeah.
And for her, it's a bath. She wants to go sit in the bath, or she'll keep refilling it and rewarming with the water. She sits in there.
Yeah.
Outside, I'm fighting for my life with those kids, but I will protect.
But you will do anything to keep them kids away from that door.
I will
so
protect
she can have her time.
that space because she needs that.
Yeah.
And so the biggest ones for us are silence and solitude, Sabbath, and then community. I stay plugged into my community.
Yeah. And you'd actually given a sermon about Sabbath that, which I don't know. Have you given it more than once or just one time?
I don't know. If you can give me a chance to talk about Sabbath, I will.
Yeah, because it's like, and I mean, we'd been Christians for a long time, but I'd never really understood the Sabbath. Like everybody always thinks when you read the 10 Commandments, like growing up here, you always thought that just meant go to church on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But then you actually get into what Sabbath means, and it is really changing. Like I don't make my, like moms, I think it may go for dads. We have a hard time resting and sitting because we feel guilty about it. But when God has like said, hey, no, you need to rest. Like, I mean, look at Elijah's story. Mm-hmm. Elijah was ready just to end it all. And God's like, go sleep.
Yeah, he gave him a snack and a nap.
Like, come on. And then the way our culture's set up, like we value productivity. Mm-hmm. And we're slowly just killing ourselves for what? Like it's a sad fact. And so Sabbath, like I think that you've said it is the most rebellious thing that we can do as a culture is just rest. And
we're raging against the machine. Yeah. I'm not going to take part in Egypt.
Yeah.
Because the reason I have Sabbath is because I used to be a slave in Egypt. Yep. And God has brought me out. I'm not going to take part in Egypt. America is Egypt. It's Babylon.
Yeah, it is.
And I am worth more than what I produce.
Yeah.
You know? And so, and here's something for pastors. If you guys are going to be a pastor, Sundays are not a Sabbath for you guys. No. Sundays are a work day. I take a 3-hour nap every Sunday afternoon after church.
And if I don't get my nap,
yes, it is.
I'm not a nice
And it's
person.
because Sundays are exhausting.
Yes.
Sundays cannot be my Sabbath.
Yeah.
but also I want to Sabbath before I go into Sunday.
Exactly.
And so I Sabbath on Saturdays. We have staff members who do their Sabbath on Mondays.
Yeah, I used to do mine on Mondays.
Sunday night to Monday night.
Yeah.
We have ones that do it on Thursdays. We have, it's hard. You have to fit it into your place in life. There's a great book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Yeah, by John Mark Comer.
Yep.
It goes great into this, but you need to make sure that you are taking time to take care of your soul.
Mm-hmm.
You need to give your spirit time to catch up with your body.
Yeah.
And it's important.
Yeah. So that was all the questions I have. Do you have anything else that I haven't covered that you want to talk about? Because like you said, you like to talk.
I do.
So, but I can't think of everything that I had here. Either I haven't asked it and you've already answered it, or that's about it. So unless there's anything else that you can give, because like I said, I don't know if this is just going to Dr. Hayes or if other students are going to watch it.
Right.
So do you have any advice other than what you've already given for people that are going into ministry?
Ministry is, if you are called into ministry,
Mm-hmm.
now listen, if you're not called into ministry, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
And that's not wrong. It's just not what you were called to do. Find what you were called to do. There's a lot of people that get into ministry that weren't called and they don't make it. They're not a failure. But if you're called into ministry, when you're heading into ministry, they make it seem like it is the worst job in the world.
And sometimes it can be.
Sometimes it is.
But I think it's also about your attitude towards it.
Sure.
It's going to be how you feel.
But I will tell you right now, like, being in ministry is the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Same.
This is what I was made for. It is my life is rich. It is full. It is deep. And are there challenges? Yes, there are challenges, but even the challenges are worth it.
Yeah. Because
if God has called you into ministry, you are being given an honor. He has trusted you with his kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the most fulfilling life you will ever have. And even in the hard points, keep in mind, this is the most fulfilling life you will ever have.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine my life. My life is wonderful. And it's because God has given me this life. So with ministry, like, stay in it, stick in it.
Yeah.
It gets hard, but man, it is so good and you will enjoy it. Like, genuinely, you will enjoy it. If you're in a healthy church, if God has called you to do this, you will enjoy it. And in the moments it's hard, change your mindset.
Yeah.
It's the joke of, like, every morning a pastor wakes up and goes, I don't want to go because I don't like them and they don't like me. Yeah. No. God has given me the honor of being with people in the hardest moments of their lives and in the best moments of their lives. He has given me the holy responsibility of, when I get on that stage and I preach, I'm not just preaching a message, I'm declaring truth to the powers and authorities. I'm declaring God's word to the spiritual realm. Like, that is a weight that should be honored, and it is one that you get to take part in. And also, it's a job where, like, you have more free time. My kids get to be around me. And my kids get to do fun and exciting things for this. Ministry is a gift, and it is fun. That does not mean it's easy. Yes, it is hard. Yes, at times you are going to hate it, but it is positive. The pros will outweigh the cons anytime. And if you get to the point in ministry where you realize maybe this isn't what I was called to do, that's okay. Go find out what you're called to do. You're not a failure if you decide ministry is not for you. But if you're called, stick with it, stay with it, and it is good and it is wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for sitting through this with me and answering these questions. And hopefully, if it's just Dr. Hayes watching, hopefully he gets some good insights from it. But if it's anybody else watching, hopefully they get really good things to take with them on their next part of their journey.
Sure. And if this is just long minutes of me rambling, I apologize.
Well, I'll ramble too.
I'm very passionate about this subject.
But that's why I wanted to interview you when the age ranges come up, because you and Pastor were the first two people I thought of, just because of your experience, like growing up in the church and doing all this stuff. And the same with Pastor being here for this long. And the same with the other two people I'm interviewing, which are friends of ours, because they've been in the ministry for a long time too. And so I didn't want to pull from somebody that was new into it? Because like me, what can I really give insight on versus what other
Well,
people
to
that
be
have
fair,
been through it?
I still don't even I'm not even totally sure I know what I'm doing still. You
I
know?
don't think any of us do really.
Yeah. No, I think I'm starting to get an idea, you know?
Yeah.
Things are getting easier. I'm getting more comfortable in it, but like, 10 years seems like a long time, but it's not a long.
No, in the scope of things, it really isn't.
And
yeah.
there's pastors that have been doing it for 60 years.
Yeah.
And you're every time you think you know what you're doing, you're going to hit a spot where you don't, you know? So I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing my best.
Literally yesterday, I was like, man, everything's going so good. And then that happened. And I was like, all right. But that's just part of it.
If things get too good, I start to worry that I'm not in the will of God.
Like, like, wait, this is supposed to be.
I joke all the time.
It's supposed to be challenging.
The easiest way you know you're in the will of God is when things suck, but
you can still be like, yay.
It's a joke, you know, like God's will is good for us. But when the times are hard, I'm like, all right, there's bad guys in the way. I'm going the right direction.
Yeah.
You know,
resistance.
That's the gig.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you so much again. And that's it for this one. See y'all again when I do the other one.
Stay married.
Yes. Stay married.